Absolutely, the most important thing when you're designing any outreach activity is to have this story. So you need to have a thread, because even though it's great to have a number of experiments, a number of demonstrations running around the room like a lunatic, without a central theme, without a take-home message, it's not as polished, it's not as conclusive, it's not as useful to the students, I don't think. I mean, I make the analogy with stand-up comics. The best stand-up comics are not the people that come on stage and tell joke after joke after joke. They're the people that come on and interweave comedy with this narrative, with this story. So it's important to have this beginning, this middle, and this end, and also to focus on the take-home message.
When you come into it, first of all, it feels like a teaching exercise and a lecturing exercise, and very much we come from that kind of didactic teaching that with mature adults. When you're teaching children or when you're working with children, you've got to give them time to ask questions. They're extremely inquisitive, very curious, and the events work so much better if you give them time for their input.
Make sure you constantly summarise what's going on. So I find that if you develop your activities and don't necessarily feed back throughout the session, then the kids begin, some pupils, not all, get lost, so they don't really know where the workshop's going. So if you constantly reaffirm what they've learned throughout the lesson, that tends to work very well. And, again, that icebreaker can work throughout a session as well. So if you feel that some of that attention is being lost by the children, then you can get it back by engaging in another icebreaker activity and bringing kids back to the workshop. I think if you started off with just a really long introduction and sort of talking to them, you've sort of set yourself on the wrong foot, as it were, for fun activities to do. So make sure that you get in there straight away with activities.
If anyone answers the question successfully, I just throw them a bag of sweets. And so you'll find that even though that towards the beginning they might be a bit, quite tired, then suddenly when there's a bag of sweets thrown, you see all these 16-year-olds like, I know the answer to that. So it's really great to involve them in that way and just to keep people on their toes.
The 13-year-olds, the trick is to just not give them too much information, because when you're 13, I don't remember most of the stuff that I learned when I was 13, I think it went through one year either. But I do remember being excited by certain things. So I tend to, in my talks, I don't have words on slides and stuff, I just have big pictures and things. If I'm talking about a cow, I'll have a cow. If I'm talking about a wheat plant, I'll have a wheat plant. If I'm talking about glowing algae, I'll have some algae glowing.
Practice it before you go into a school. So what we did is we roped in a load of PhD students just to demo on and told them to behave like 16-year-olds or 18-year-olds or 10-year-olds. And then you just, if anything else, you've got a sense of timing.